Quorum plus.
Okay, we have a call to order for the Bartlett Economic Development Commission meeting of December 10th, 2018. Can we have a roll call, please, Tony?
Stephanie Ganzi,
Here.
Dan Gunstein, Ann Gutenkopf,
Here.
Cecilia Green,
Here.
Jerry Cabasco,
Here.
Adam Lewinsky,
Here.
Robert Perry,
Here.
Tracy Smedilla, Joe Laporte. Okay, we have 6 commissioners. We do have a quorum tonight. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda would be the approval of the previous minutes from November 12th, 2018. Do we have any discussion on those minutes? Do we have a motion to approve?
I move.
I motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next agenda item would be the Bartlett Tap BEDA application. Tony, you want to run us
Yes, thank
through
you,
that?
Chairman Cabasco. It's a lot of information. I'll go through it rather quickly. And then the petitioner is here with some of his associates, and both he and staff will answer any questions you have. So this is one of the BEDA applications that I have mentioned to you in the past few months as we've been reviewing them, of one that we've been working on with the petitioner for a while. Mr. John Castilla, the gentleman there you see in the glasses in the front row, is the applicant in this one. And I'm going to briefly just mention, instead of going through the whole history of this building for you tonight, to suffice it to say it's an integral keystone property of our downtown that's been utilized as a bar and grill, as you all know, and you've all patronized the various businesses that have been there over the years, basically right in the middle of the downtown. So, you know, obviously an important property, and had been known in a colloquial sense as the Tap, or the Bartlett Tap, for many years. Most recently, it was a business called Platform 18, and prior to that, it was known as Papa Pacino's for a few years. As indicated in Mr. Castilla's application, the building has been utilized as a bar since circa 1884. The last business closing close to 2 years ago in March 2017. The building went through a foreclosure process and ultimately was purchased by a real estate investor named Junior Anderson this past February. Showed it to multiple potential operators, and as well as staff meeting with quite a few potential operators. And also, we had reported that to you earlier in this year, that we were meeting with various people who had expressed some interest in this space. Ultimately, this past summer, Mr. John Castilla stuck with the project, has the vision for it, met several times with staff, learned a lot more about the village's overall history, the history of this property, 113 Railroad Avenue in particular, some of the information about the village in general and the downtown area, and how it is that both staff, the EDC, the mayor, and the village board are seeking to develop our downtown, including this key property. As he was pursuing the property, and also as Junior Anderson purchased it, as we met with other potential operators over there, of course, we let them all know about the brand-new BEDA program as a way to assist in their improvement of this property. And so tonight, that's what you have, the BEDA application for the new Bartlett Tap, or I should say the reopening of the Bartlett Tap. In Mr. Castilla's application, He gives some information about his background, his extensive education, his background working in his parents' restaurant and bar in South Bend while growing up. I did make note in the staff report that he's been good to work with and real upbeat and positive, receptive to embracing the village's storied history as well as that building as we've worked with him. Acknowledging this building's history also, I should add, of the businesses that I've worked with here in my tenure, now 13 and a half years, he's worked the most with our museum, the History Museum Director, Pam Rohleder, in terms of obtaining information of historical value, as well as some photos that he's going to be utilizing within the restaurant. Staff has toured it. Both Scott and myself and other staff have toured this building all the way through since the last building closed, since it fell into major disrepair. It was in receivership for quite a while with the bank, and we toured it a few times with the bank. And I only mention that because the building, this wasn't your typical vanilla box build-out by any means. This was basically a gut rehab project that Mr. Kestia dove headfirst into and has been swimming through that process for, I'm going to put it at about 4 to 5 months at this point. So I'm going to flip through quickly because as I mentioned, this is turned in a very thorough application that details a lot of the before and after pictures, and I'll flip through some of those. But the bottom line, before I go through that, is that he is detailed in tonight's application $132,507 in expenditures, much of which, as I mentioned, was required simply to bring up. I mean, of course, there's a lot of beautification going on with the building, but much of the expenditures have been really to remedy elements of the building that had fallen into disrepair and were no longer in code compliance. Like I said, it would take a very long time to go through all of them, but generally, it's everything. It's plumbing, it's electric upgrades, and some of the more recent expenses I would characterize as related to fire code, also accessibility. So as I mentioned, this is an expenditure so far, I should mention. Expenditures sometimes grow rather than shrink, of about $132,000. And also, since he submitted the original application where he wrote 125, there were an additional $8,000 in expenses related to electrical upgrades for the electrical box. I could go through the recommendation, but suffice it to say, the rehab of this ticks off a lot of elements of both the Economic Development 2016 through 2020 marketing plan that we're already about 60% through, but one of those pertained to this particular area of railroad to revitalize that area, and as well as the village's strategic plan in terms of building up the downtown, addressing those Railroad Avenue vacancies that have affected the downtown. In terms of the recommended BEDA grant amount, this is keeping in mind that this is the fourth application and that this program was funded with $150,000 for this fiscal year that we are tasked to utilize to the best of our ability until next May 1st. And this is the fourth grant. As you recall, the first one of Indian Express, a $25,000 grant, $50,000 for Mr. Rafidia in terms of rehabbing and redeveloping Bartlett Plaza, and a $15,000 grant for Indian Grocery Store, expanding into offering hot food. So for this grant, like some of the other ones where the applicant requested a maximum $50,000 grant, our staff is recommending $35,000 for this one, subject to documentation of completing all these upgrades as detailed I'm just going to kind of show you, flipping through them rather quickly. Again, they're all in your packet. But this also, I should mention, Mr. Castilla is entering in, or has entered into a lease agreement with the owner. And because of that, this is the approval from Junior Anderson, the real estate investor who owns this building. And hopefully you had a chance to read through his submittal where he shows the rendering with the new signs, the new branding of it, the new name, where past meets present, something I really like. Circa 1884, reestablished 2018, which is coming to a close rapidly. And he was kind enough, since there were so many documents turned in, to detail what they were for: fire and safety, beverage systems, signage, furniture, basically, like I said, everything. He provides his introduction, again, in terms of his own background and vision for reestablishing this building, or this business, in a 136-year-old building, he cites. As I mentioned, it was in quite a state of disrepair and outdated. He's been doing wiring, plumbing, replacing appliances, and making numerous repairs, as Scott and I have stopped in there from time to check on his progress. He provides his business plan in terms of various events and the photographs that I mentioned that he'll be using on the interior. And then he starts detailing, as I mentioned, these expenses, these large expenses that he's gone through in terms of upgrading the fire code. I suspect the fire code wasn't just a little bit outdated there, and Mr. Castilla can speak to that better than I can. But because it had been in operation steadily over the years, the fire code had been generally grandfathered in over these many decades. So he had to bring it up to the current code standards. And going through it again, fire and safety, shows some of the electric and fire suppression equipment that he's put in. The next section details, this is still fire information. This is some of the information on the beverage system, including the walk-in cooler. I'm going to go quickly, I said, again, through this. It details a lot of the equipment, and you can see the shape that some of these walls and floors were in. Rebuilt the handicap ramp. And again, you have to forgive me going quickly through this. $28,000 worth from the Booth company and furniture, Windy City Booths. A lot of these have been paid already. Here's a photo of the rebuilt bar. And ultimately, what I'm looking for is towards the end of this. He has the amount that it comes out to $132,507. And growing, as Scott mentioned, as I said, these expenses don't tend to shrink as you keep working on it. We've talked a little bit about the menu, but there wasn't a proposed menu included in tonight's. But I know it's something that's been in the works, and he's been sharing some ideas with us about his proposed menu. I could talk at length about this project, but just to generalize it, it's an important building for us to get going. People on the EDC and the village board and local residents and business owners have been asking us for a couple of years what's going on over there and what's going to happen. Mr. Castilla has gone about this project in a diligent manner. remedying all these code violations as well as beautifying the property. And again, we're recommending a BEDA grant in the amount of $35,000, which amounts to 26% of the overall project costs for this. So basically, plus or minus $100,000 investment on the part of Mr. Castilla and $35,000 worth of incentive from the village if the EDC and then later on, ultimately, the village board feels that that's the right number. And at this point, Mr. Castilla is far more knowledgeable in terms of the state of where things are at right now and what's been repaired and what still needs to be repaired. So he's here again with some of his team that I just met tonight. Either myself or Scott can answer any questions about the application and what we've been doing in terms of this project, and he's here as well to answer any questions that you may have of him.
Hey, Tony, quick question for you. The BEDA or the program itself, was there a cap beyond the 50K? Was there a cap as a percentage as well?
No, we didn't address, the cap of percentage was 50%.
50%? Okay.
Yeah, which I suppose could apply to a smaller project.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to say there's been a lot of interest in this program. And so most of the percentages, the 26% I looked up before the meeting would be the highest percentage of the 4 BEDA grants so far. Again, due to the size and the scope of some of the other projects. But 50% would be the maximum.
Do you know of others that are going to be applying to use up the rest of the money?
As of now, there's a few businesses left that we're trying to, it's a mix of, I could say 2 businesses that we're trying to attract to the community by offering, mentioning this program and saying that it exists. And then there's a few that are existing businesses that are contemplating an expansion. So as of now, there's not another application submitted, but there's some people researching and probably pretty close to doing it.
What happens if at the end of the fiscal year you have money left over? Does that roll over into the next year?
That hasn't really been determined yet. We typically, since it's a budget line item, we typically don't roll unspent funds from a line item into the next year's fiscal year. It's something we could always request, but it's typically not the way we do our village budget. If money's unspent, we just come in a little under budget. This would leave, this would leave $25,000 left into the BEDA program through the end of April.
Well, I don't know about municipal budgets that much, but a lot of times business budgets in a corporation, if you don't spend it, you don't get the amount you need next year. They base it on what you spent the year before. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The best way to characterize it is some of the BEDA grants that I think Scott and I, speaking for Scott, are anticipating next year are probably on the more sizable amount, where there could be expenditures of several $100,000, $500,000 or up. So those applications, those particular projects haven't quite come to fruition yet. So we are hoping to continue the program. We're expecting for it to continue and hoping to actually expand it. But to answer your earlier question, we don't really anticipate having any funds left at the end of the fiscal year for this, but there's certainly a possibility if nobody applies after this one.
But you don't believe that having some money unspent in this will affect the next year?
No,
No,
absolutely.
no, the opposite. We would like to have every dollar of it spent on good projects like this and Mr. Rafidia's and those other restaurants, because what we can do is point, as economic development programs typically do, to discuss the private investment that's been leveraged from our public investment. So, you know, just like when we proposed the program early in the year and explained it to the EDC, we want to be able to point to 5 successful projects by the end of the year that are underway with the help of BEDA grants, that are attracting private investment and creating new jobs as well. So,
If they cut the budget for this line item, it'll be done as a cost savings measure. It won't be done as, well, you didn't spend it all, so this is all you should get, if that answers your question.
no.
You know,
And we can speak in generalities of the projects next year, but not necessarily in specifics at this point. Would you like to hear the petitioner speak at all?
sure, yes.
Okay.
So excuse my voice. This is from, I'm a wrestling coach for little kids, and this was yesterday's wrestling tournament voice from screaming at 27 kids on a mat, not to get pinned. So this is my voice today, which happens after every match in the tournament. So thank you. I'm John Castilla. So my associates over here, this is Johnny, Ronnie, it just happened to be that way, and Tina. We all come to you tonight, just let's see some faces from who we are, introduce ourselves. We are either in social media marketing, provider relations, and finance and business planning. Johnny is my business associate as well. And all of us have a role at Bartlett Tap in some manner. So I asked them to come for my support. I could have actually had 2 roles here, but I didn't want to overwhelm you because I've had so much support from so many people, from either the Bartlett or our own personal friends or the village of Bartlett, which has been very overwhelming. My website that I haven't even advertised gets requests anywhere from 10 to 50 emails a week asking when we're going to open, can they apply, what are our events, put them on the VIP mailing list, you name it. I had an ad on Indeed.com for 2 days for bartenders. I had to shut it down because in 2 days, 75 applicants came in on a 48-hour period to apply to work there. And I probably interviewed half of those applicants just to hear a story from every one of them, just to hear a story. I mean, not only to interview them, but each one had a story to tell about that place. And because of that and the history, I started to fall in love with the place itself. Because not only did I get to view so many photos from Pam at the Historical Museum that I started working with in the first week I even came into the picture, I was just overwhelmed by not just Bartlett's history of the beginning and the railroad and the two brothers becoming sheep, selling the sheep fur for World War I, but the history of the Bartlett Tap itself. And there's so much there. We find to this day signatures from people scratching in the wood in the basement, people scratching in the wood of the pillars in the attic or in the hallway. When we took down some drywall or some rotted freezer stuff, which you saw in my photos, people actually signed it, you know, thinking one day this will be found, signed from 1881, signed from 1883. You know, and I would go get Pam and say, you got to take pictures of this. You got to take pictures of this. And she'd come with her camera and we start taking pictures. And she's doing her documentation, you know, so we could still keep that history of who was there before any of us. So I took on this project unknowingly of this task. They came to me many times about this BEDA program and telling me about it, and I didn't have time for them. I would say, are you kidding me? I'm running 7 to 10 parallel projects to get this place open. I was so busy and overwhelmed by trying to run all my projects in parallel, you know, because when you buy a building, or when the building was purchased, it was purchased as a foreclosure, as is, which scared away a lot of people that I think probably walked through it, because I didn't walk through it. I didn't go in the basement. I didn't go in the attic. I didn't crawl. I had to pay somebody to crawl underneath the building, and boy, I'm going to tell you, the guy who did it, God bless him, because I didn't want to crawl under that building. But we pulled up some really cool artifacts from under there, some bottles and crates from 1884 that I'm having professionally cleaned to be on display there. So as we got into the building a little bit more and more, and can I be honest, this proposal doesn't even include the foundation, the windows, the heating system, the roof. I didn't even include that in there. I was just too overwhelmed. I had a deadline, and I knew I had enough. I knew I had enough, because the foundation itself is another story. It's basically built on gigantic stones, gigantic cinder blocks, gigantic cobblestones is what that building is built on. It's pretty solid, I have to admit. Surprisingly enough, when you walk in that place, no floors creak, which is shocking because we have new homes and we have floors that creak. Not one floor creaks in that building, which is actually very, you know, it was built and it was built correctly, but there's still a lot of despair going on there. So I can answer any question you like about myself, my vision, these estimates. Granted, I got a lot of estimates. But when you're really trying to work on an opening date, you can only meet with so many contractors. I can only meet with so many plumbers. I can only meet with so many electrical people. Every day, and this is not a joke, every day there's a business card on my front door from someone trying to introduce themselves to me. Either it be for silverware plates, to a dumpster, to a roof, to a parking lot. Every day there's a business card on my building. And I either call them if I need them, or I put them in line with the rest of my to-call list. So one thing I was able to do is listen to the village and all of the visitors I've gotten. Because when those doors were open in the summer, people stopped by every day. Every day. Every day someone stopped by. And every day they spoke about the menu. Every day they spoke about the ribs. Every day they spoke about the coleslaw, the fried chicken, the fish fry Fridays. What are you bringing back? All the other people want to know what you're bringing back on your menu. What's today's Monday? Friday, I was on a talk radio, a podcast radio station on Friday. Some of the village personnel tuned in to me on Friday because I sent the link out. And I wanted them to hear what I had to say about the building and what my vision was. And not just that, but how proud the people and the residents of Bartlett are of the village of Bartlett. Not just this building, but the town, the village. And I really went online to express that to anybody who tuned in. And on my own link, I had over 400 listeners on my side. I don't even know what the radio station had. On my own side, I had 400 listeners tuning in to what I had to say. And the menu was something that, you know, came up on my questions that I was asked. And I got a preliminary menu, but I'm not done tweaking it because I really feel like I don't want just bar food. I don't just want regular, I want bar food, don't get me wrong, but I want bar food to be, I'm proud of. It's my name on it. It's our name on it. It's my associate's name on it. So I want to make sure that the menu has what I think this village deserves. And it deserves a real chef, a real person who really cares about what they're putting out there for sale. I don't want to just put the greasy burger. I want to put the burger that was done correctly with a high-end type of Angus certified beef. I want to put the high-end things that I believe this village could use. There is actually a statistic out there right now, and the statistic shows that 25 to 45% of a township's residents goes 5 miles outside of their own dwelling to eat. It's statistically proven. You can Google this. Why? We are probably all guilty of this in this room. We love to go to our favorite restaurant in Schaumburg. We love to go to our favorite restaurants in the city. We like to go outside where we live. And right here in this area, we've got great restaurants that we should probably establish to go visit more. And I want to set that setting up. I want to be not just that tap with its history, but people saying, wow, did you guys check out that menu? No reason for you to go downtown. There's no reason for you to go spend your money in Schaumburg. They've got enough money. Let's keep it within our community. I'm not from this community. I'm an outsider. I live in Oak Park. But because I was so welcomed and because I like everything I've seen and the people I've met, I'm currently looking to reside here because of this. So that's something that I can easily say. It's a great community. I have children. Great place to raise kids. It's safe. You can't even watch the news on Sunday nights anymore. All we see is bad news downtown. Last thing I want is my children being part of that or being victims of something crazy down there. So with that being said, I brought in my associates because this is that important to me, and it's that important for us to have representation here tonight. Shoot away at whatever you'd like to know about this, about me, about
go first.
about our vision.
Yeah, I have a kind of a specific question. Congratulations, first of all. Very happy. You're instantly the closest bar to me, so I appreciate it. My question is the front. It's great what you're doing to it. You're keeping it with the black facade. Is that the
For
business
now.
I saw? For now, okay. I'm not wild about that, but it's your business. But my concern is you are in some ways the face of Bartlett. When you get off the train, first thing you see, and I see a gaming license. Where are you planning to put?
We actually built a wall towards the back of the room for the games, so they're not out in the front.
Okay.
They're not visually, you won't even. They're by compliance, by the compliance of the Illinois Gaming Association. So their compliance is they have to be seen from the bar. They have to be seen. Well, they have to be seen in the front window. So I ended up moving them towards the back. So I ended up having a wall built, so they're back there, but they're also with a half wall, so the bartenders can still see, because that's what's in compliance, to visually see it. So if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does, and you seem very mindful of, optics. And I just want to make sure that it's not slots in here, and suddenly we're in Back to the Future 2 with, with the dirty town, it is the first thing you see off the train. So just keep that in mind as we.
And I'm actually on the fence post about the neon myself. I don't know if I want the word gaming in front of my window. I love my B. I love that Bartlett B. That's been restored from that B on the right side of that window came from a photo from 1928. Right there. I hate to ruin that with something that says neon video gaming, to be honest with you.
I'd be with you on that.
I like my sign.
I have to comment on your sign. I'm Nan Gudenkauf with the Bartlett Area Chamber of Commerce, and I was so excited to see your sign. You are so smart to do that so early.
Thank you.
And get everybody so excited about it, and I don't know why more businesses don't do that. That is the first thing they should do to get the buzz and everybody talking and everybody knows that you're there before you're even there.
Yeah.
So, very smart.
Thank you. I was going to go across the top of that sign with red, the top coming soon, but everybody said, oh, it's going to be too gaudy, and then the weather changed
You're
on me.
noticing it, obviously, from your, like you say, they're coming to your website and.
I picked the byline where past meets present, because we're the present in this room. Where the past is all those photos I'm going to display, all the history that's inside there. That's the past. And I've kept the cooler as original as I could. The cooler, well, I couldn't really do too much with it anyways. It's 136 years old. It's definitely a big cooler to have to do anything. But that's the past. But it's current. Inside is modern. Inside is compliant. And it actually stays cold inside there now because we had to rebuild the interior. because it had to have a twist of an appearance, have historical look about it, and it does. And it actually, I've been told by some of my associates, I should have lights on that sign, which is our debate, because the white is reflective. So if you're coming down Oak Street, I don't have to light it. The headlights light it for me. The headlights of people's cars light it up for me in a way where I don't have to light it up. And if I do decide to light it up, I will hit it with solar, a little solar LED that's compliant, that's friendly, that doesn't have to go through code and all this. It's just, solar panels and boom, shoot me a little LED up there. That's my vibe. I can talk about this stuff forever.
You're passionate, you can tell.
I've been wrapped up into this for almost 5 months now.
When do you expect to open? I mean,
No,
if everything bounces right now, you know.
I'm trying to shoot for Super Bowl area, but I'll be happy if I'm open for St. Patrick's Day. And that's just because, it's just because of dollars and time, to be honest with you. A lot of those budget dollars that you see in my proposal were unforeseen when you just walk through a building. Did I know that software and those boxes were not in today's technology in my first couple pages? I had no idea. Think about our cell phones. Think about our cell phones, how much they upgrade the iPhone 5 to 6 to 8 to 9. I don't even know what they're on anymore. This is the same incidence. These boxes are out of compliance for today's technology to ring the fire department. The heat sensors now are wireless. So the heat sensors now that I have to have, which are about, I think, 8 in my proposal, are wireless. And then not only are they wireless, but they also have to have a couple hardwired in as backup to the wireless in case the Wi-Fi is down. I didn't know that. It's a $19,000 cost. Well, there goes my, it comes off of somewhere. I mean, I wish I had a money tree, but I don't.
And just one thing to add to that, what I really like about John is there are some other businesses that kind of like maybe beat around the bush and what can we do? Is there a way around this? And John never does that. John always wants to do it right, and he spends the money, doesn't ask any questions. He just says he wants to make sure it's compliant and done the right way. So we, as a staff, we really appreciate that attitude that he has.
I'll
many
take
people
any
do
of
you
that
plan on?
leftover budget money if there's any on the table. I'm just kidding.
John.
I had to say that I've been teasing them the whole time, Tony. I'm like, Tony, what's the max? Bring it this way. This building could use it.
John, in total, how many people are you going to employ? Roughly.
I think no less than 10 and no more than 20. That's my thought. No less than 10. I mean, the kitchen alone's got to be 3. I have 2 busboys, 3 to 8 bartenders. I can't live there full time, so I've got to have somebody like me cloned, 2 or 3 of me, at least 2 for sure, on a part-time basis. So, if I could say I could have now, this is one without the outdoor patio open. That's my number. I don't know when the outdoor patio is open. That's another 32 seats back there, 8 tables that are on the side of the building. So that might raise me up to summer help, 2 or 3 to 4 more people.
I want to compliment you on respecting the history of that building, and it looks like you're keeping the original bar. Are you doing much at all to that?
Oh my God. So the original back bar
Yeah.
was the first thing I did when I went in there. The original back bar, when you see those cylinders on the right-hand side, and there's one more photo of that cylinder, there's another there. When you click that with your finger and hit it, it sounds like PVC. PVC. No one, everybody thought it was PVC. My professional wood company that I hired to do that said, that's PVC. It's PVC. I said, it's not PVC. They didn't have PVC in 1884. It's not PVC. So we began to sand it. That is called tiger grain. Tiger grain is extremely expensive. That means they took the tree and they didn't go long ways when they shaved it they went the circumference of the tree. So those pillars and the small pillars in the front of the original front bar are tiger grain, and they're beautiful. They're beautiful because you get to see now the age in the circle of that tree as opposed to it being elongated. I would never have known had I not taken on that project. I could have painted it. I could have painted it white. I could have painted it black. But I professionally had it sanded back down to the wood. And those are the original mirrors still, to my knowledge. And they're flawless. So the back bar is original. The front bar, I was hoping was original, but it's not. Someone before me, and I don't know who, put a granite countertop. Someone before me took probably the brass kick plate where everybody stood with their cowboy boots. And I can wish if I knew that brass plate was there, I would have already demoed what you see in my photos, because I would love to have that brass plate back. But I don't know if it's worth me demolishing it to find out if it's not there.
I remember when that left. That
So,
was sad.
I brought the front, the only thing that's gonna be not original is gonna be that front bar, and that's because somebody has already
Right.
messed with it. But I left the back, and I took care of that cooler. The cooler, if you go to one of my photos, you see it's red on the left-hand side. There's a guy in the photo, I don't know what page it is because, it shows a picture and it's red. But if you come and see it in person, which I hope all of you will come visit me, not just once, but many times, because we can only stay if people come and visit. You know, we always get sad when people leave and you see a vacant building, and then you have to think about, well, how often did you go and visit that building and spend your money to be a customer there? And sometimes you have to blame not the people who took the chance, but the people who didn't come to visit. That's how businesses stay open.
I also think it's very refreshing that you have a marketing team, because one of my complaints before was we would never really know what was going on with the other businesses that were there. And sometimes we would show up to go eat and the building was closed, and it obviously sounds like they were having some other issues, but we would just never seem to know what was going on, like what specials there were, what food was different that night, events. So it's definitely refreshing to see that you have a team with you that you're ready to utilize for that, because I think that's going to be huge with getting the word out. And most anything I look to do now, I find it like online or on Facebook or whatever.
We actually started social media first, right about the same time. Every trigger we pulled was basically the last week of July, and it's been nonstop since. You have to run parallel. My website was up before I even probably had the keys to the building.
And what is the website? Because I don't think I saw it in this.
Bartlett-tap.com.
Okay, thanks.
Bartlett-tap.com. It's still there. It hasn't been tweaked, but we're working on that now so we can finally start adding now the photos, the menu. I don't want to really show too much of the interior because I really want the interior, the design that we have to come up. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. That's all I can say. And I don't want to give it away until people come in. I want the wow effect. And I'm not going to give it away on my website. I need each one of you to walk in, and I want you to give me the wow effect. When you see this photo right here in the red, it looks like it's a red painted wall, but it's not a red painted wall. That is 7 layers of paint from 1884, which were dyes back then, And we started to sand it because we started to sand it down, and we stained the one side that's on the right, and we started to look at the side that was on the left. And the gentleman in that photo that's kind of blurry called me and says, "You have to see this wall. You don't." He says, "People pay me to make this distressed look in the city of all these new up-and-coming restaurants." So I ended up driving over there, looking at that wall, and there's all the colors of paint from the beginning, when the original one, from 1884, we think circa, quote me on that beer, to a brown, to a green, to a brown, to an orange, to a red, to a brown. And as we sanded, I said, that thing looks beautiful. That's 7 years of history right there. And it just so happened to match my booth, the booth that I'm having made. It's going to be L-shaped. So the booth is going to be one giant L-shaped booth with tables as if you're at if anybody's been to Mia Francesca's, the restaurant, the Italian restaurant, Mia Francesca. It's a long booth, and tables are there for either parties of 2, 4, 6, and you can slide them or separate them. But anyways, it just happened to match that. So there's history right there, just that wall, you know, because you have to understand, those were dies back then, which is kind of cool to see that they're there, and someone finally brought them back out.
So do you have other restaurants or bars now? Or
We
was,
do not currently anymore. My partner and I, Johnny, we've looked at a couples, and when we walked away, and then I grew up in a bar restaurant as a little boy, and then I moved to Chicago at 23, and at me being the youngest sibling, it was basically up to me to walk in that footstep. But my parents my father had passed away, and our siblings, and it was, my sisters got married, my brother moved to California, and I moved to Chicago. But it was, you know, it's in my genes, it's in my passion.
Are you or the owner doing anything to the upstairs? I'm sure you've heard the stories how dances were up there.
Right now, my lease is only the downstairs.
Okay.
I have nothing to do with the upstairs yet. I have considered the front of the building because I could probably make an office up there. But right now, I strictly just lease the downstairs, and the owner, and that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom upstairs.
Right.
You know, and then a front space that looks like it was, they claim a dance studio because there's a ballerina bar and a giant mirror. So I don't know when that was, but that's what's up there now. But I'm only really, my vision and my energy is strictly downstairs only.
Okay.
And the basement to get that in compliance.
Well, Mr. Castillo, I have never met you, and it's a pleasure to hear you talk. You're an entrepreneur, you're exciting, you're excited, and you're making us excited to see an opening. There's a lot of history in the building, as you found out. Some of that history is not so good. And what I'm getting at, and not so good, is that previous owners have been there and previous owners have failed. And this is a concern of mine. We do not like failures, and neither do you.
I'm 51 years old. Failure's not an option at my age anymore.
So far, you have $132,000. You got skin in the game, and I imagine there's going to be more skin because, as you say, you're not finished.
Mm-hmm.
So have you figured out what your end game is, when you're going to get, or when you're going to make all that money back, and what you're going to do when you make your money back that you put into it? Do you have an exit plan? What do you see in the future?
I never really kind of looked at an exit plan because I didn't feel like in my point right now that I'm going anywhere anytime soon, to be honest with you. I know there's been failure there, but I think their failure was either non-communication via the internet and people not knowing what was there. I think their non-communication was, I think the kiss of death was changing the name. I think the kiss of death was not leaving it alone and leaving the name there and keeping the tradition of what was on that menu. I think that my father always said, no one sells a good camel. That was a saying he used to tell me. Nobody sells a good camel. Why would I sell it if it's doing well? If it's doing well, I get my money back. I'm not looking for my money back next year, 2 years, 3 years. I'm not in it for a short term. I've got sons. I hope they find interest in it, and I can say, here you go. You guys want to run it? Because I'm not really looking for, I never really thought that far in advance, to be honest with you. So if the village supports it and others come into town to visit it, then I'm doing okay. There's no reason for me to get rid of it or to even think about short-terming it or anything. She's my biggest marketer right here.
Okay, would you mind stepping up to the microphone?
I'm Ronnie. I've worked actually in the industry for about 10 years now. And I've worked downtown, many places, and I've already been creating the buzz in more places than just here. My uncle raised my 2 cousins here in Bartlett, so it's a home to me since I was a child, but I moved here and have a 5-year-old daughter, and so now it's a home to me as well. But I've also learned the business, and I'm excited to now be 6 minutes away from work, opposed to downtown and all that. Right off the Metro, I have so many people that like to come out and have a good time and see different places. So the buzz is going in more than just here. So we're going to bring something new to this area.
I answered your question.
For now it did. I only heard half of what she's saying because of the microphone, but that's okay.
Well, the buzz is around, not just in Bartlett, but in our own circles. And we have a lot, between the 4 of us, we've got a pretty extensive circle of friends and colleagues. And we have a lot of support from a lot of people wanting to come here and can't wait for me to open either. So, yeah, so I guess to answer your question, I don't know my end game.
So who would you say your target is? I mean, is this more like a 20-30s something, or are we looking more like the 40s, 50s, 60s crowd?
Well, I'm trying to target 30 and above, to be honest. I don't feel like bouncing out a 21-year-old kid that's drunk. You know, I don't feel like I don't have the energy for it, and we're really trying to target a crowd that appreciates the menu and appreciates the ambiance and appreciates the decor, because the decor is going to be the history of Bartlett, and it's not going to be all the neon lights and the glitz, the glamour, and the glow sticks. I mean, that's not what I'm looking for. I hear that somewhere in another neighborhood of the area. It's not going to be where I'm at. You know, I'm trying to go. I'm looking for the Scotch drinkers and the martini drinkers, to be honest with you. That's what I'm trying to. That's the audience I'm trying to target. Yeah.
Good luck. I think if you focus on the menu and you actually get a decent product, there's a real need for it in the downtown area. So
Thank you.
I'm excited. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Does the building owner, like, could the building owner come back next year and request a BEDA grant, or is it one per address?
We put the program together for one really per address for every 3 years, because we acknowledge, well, first of all, that would necessitate the continuation of the program, obviously, and acknowledging that a lot of the applicants are restaurants, and some of them unfortunately do close, and some other operator might come in the future. So, but the long story short is, this would be the one BEDA grant for this address for, 2018 through 2020 or so.
And now, everything Tony said was accurate, but to add to that, at an upcoming meeting, you folks will have an opportunity to look at the BEDA program and see its success and recommend tweaking it, so to speak. So that will be something that's going to be brought to you in the near future.
Are you looking for a motion from us, Tony, for a recommendation?
Indeed, we are, yes. The recommendation comes from the EDC and proceeds to the village board for their consideration.
Well, I'd like to move that we recommend a BEDA grant to the Bartlett Tap in the amount of $35,000 and advance it to the board.
And I'll second it.
Do we have a vote on it?
Do you want me to take a roll call vote?
Roll call vote.
I'd like to say that from what I heard from John, he's excited about opening up a new business. We're excited with you, John.
Thank you.
And of course, we wish you all the luck in the world, that you're successful. And based upon what I heard and what I seen from you, I would like to recommend that we go forward.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that from all of you.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Green and seconded by Commissioner Gansey on the floor, so I'm going to take roll.
Second by Gudenkauf.
Sorry?
Nan second.
Oh, Nan, let me amend my notes here. Okay, Commissioner Gansey,
Yes.
Commissioner Cabasco,
Yes.
Commissioner Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry.
Oh, you already got mine. We're good.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Commissioner Lewinsky.
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Gutenkauf?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And as I mentioned for the petitioner, this will proceed to an upcoming Village Board Committee meeting where you get to do a similar presentation to the board, but with the recommendation.
I have one more question. Have you hired your chef?
I have a preliminary chef that I'm going to actually bring him in from Indianapolis to see the place. It's really, I'm glad you asked me that. I've got 4 candidates. The candidates that I've looked at, it's not just their culinary experience, it's not just maybe their schooling, because sometimes you get people that are self-taught, that are amazing chefs. The resume that I'm looking at is their creative menu, which is I have right here from the person from Indianapolis. So my resume is not, I mean, it's their references as well, don't get me wrong, but it's the creativity of crisscrossing ingredients from appetizers to dinner to menu, to where I'm not sitting on perishables to go to waste. That's how it's done. That's how it's done correctly. That's how you have to hire somebody creative. I'm looking for an up-and-coming chef. I'm looking for up-and-coming pastry people. So to answer your question is, no, not yet, because I'm very picky. Because I'm picky. I could have hired a chef, yes. I could have hired a chef the first week on Indeed.com. But that's not what I'm looking for. I can cook if I want to. But, you know, I'm trying to, my menu is secret, top secret right now. And that's because it's pretty, I've let these guys see it. It's pretty intense. It's you know, let me give you, it's fried walleye. It's fried walleye. It's barbecue shrimp, jumbo shrimp. It's billionaire meatball. It's walleye bites. It's lobster dip. It's lobster bisque. It's a little bit different than what traditional bar food is. You know, I mean, I'm going to have traditional menu. Don't get me wrong. I have to. You know, there's a lunch crowd. It's a hardworking lunch crowd that wants somewhere great. But I also want to have a menu that is where people can go to and they feel like they just went to downtown because they just had a beautiful meal. And I'm a foodie. My friends are foodies. Hova Realty, the owner's a foodie. We appreciate tasting good food. So when I do have a chef, trust me, you guys are going to know it because I'm going to advertise them because they're going to come with credentials that they're going to actually, the chef will bring their own following as well. That's the type of person I want to bring. Not just somebody that nobody knows, but somebody that people have heard of.
Are there TVs too? Are you gonna have like a sports bar kind of setting, like TVs for games or?
Yeah, we've got 7 or 6. We're still trying to debate. They're all like 48 to 50 inches, you know. But I don't want to put too many because I do want to put photos of black and white of Bartlett history between them. You know, I've got some of my favorite photos, and I want those photos up in between those. But will there be a TV in every direction while you're looking around? Yes. Yeah. It's not a big bar.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, if you really look at the building, the bar is only a third of the size of that building. The rest is how big that kitchen is. And in the middle is dead space. That's where the bathrooms are. So really, it's not that big of a bar. If you, I'm going to be happy if I get 65 seats approved. I don't even know what the occupancy is. No one's ever told me. I've been trying to get that answer. I've been calculating on my hands when I'm trying to calculate it. I'll be happy between 50 and 65. That's all I can say.
Thank you.
I don't know those answers until I get this stuff done for the fire marshal. That's when he tells me the answer.
Well, I think you're very smart in taking your time with getting the right chef, because you probably know, a good chef will make your business, and just the opposite, a bad chef can break your business. So, yeah, you want to take your time with that one.
Yep, I have it. I've been taking my time with that one for 4 months. So, I'm close. I'll know somebody, I'll know in January, February. That's when I'll know what the menu really, really looks like, what specials will be, what's gonna be there all the time for the lunch crowd, and then what specials we're gonna run throughout the month.
Well, I and all the commissioners here and the people in the village of Bartlett are excited with you to see what you're going to bring to the village. And I'm sure it's going to be very well, and you're going to be well rewarded.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your commentary. We all hope you're successful, and we look forward to your grand opening.
Thanks for coming by.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, we can move on to the next agenda item now, which would be new business and public comment.
Thanks. Just on the subject of these BEDA grants, I should mention that our first applicant and recipient from about 4 or 5 months ago, Indian Express Restaurant, has completed their build-out, and they opened last week. So it was nice to see, well, it's always nice to see whether a grant recipient or not, from somebody moving from the initial meeting to a concept plan to creating a menu to doing the build-out to opening their business. So
Excuse me, what was the name of the restaurant?
it's called Indian Express.
What is it?
Indian Express. It's a
Indian
vegetarian
Express.
Indian restaurant in Westgate Commons. They were the first applicant, I want to say, back in maybe June or soon after the program was initiated. So I had my lunch there on Friday, and they're open. And then a business that Commissioner Perry had his major involvement in that I hadn't mentioned, but they've been open for a little while, Derek Dermatology, is also in that same center. So 2 more occupancies in Westgate Commons. That's what we talk about here, filling these spaces. And again, an exciting one tonight. But in terms of new business, those are a couple that have opened recently.
Do we have any further knowledge of, his name, Trafidia?
Yes, Mr. Rafidia has actually submitted some additional requests of the village. He came in, I think his BEDA grant was approved by the village board in October, and he's got some additional requests as we knew he would from working with him most of this year, and it is in regard to various uses that he's proposing for the former Bartlett Fresh Market space, as well as some additional incentives that he's seeking. And that will be, I was just writing that up today with Scott, and that's actually scheduled to go before the village board next week. So we continue working with him. As I say here at these meetings, it's not a done deal with his project, but the BEDA grant was certainly one of the big and important aspects of it, but not the only aspect of it. So it's still a work in progress, and he'll be back in here talking to the village board next Tuesday night about his project.
Can you detail any of those uses, or you have to wait till next week?
Probably should wait till next week, but it's, he's looking for some type of feedback from the board since he's seeking, will be seeking several special uses that would require liquor licenses and also some fee waivers in terms of the incentives. So in generalities, that's what it's going to be. It hasn't gone out yet to the board, but that's the type of uses he'll be looking for some feedback about.
Anything on his special financing needs that he was going after? You said it might take a certain amount of time, 90 days, I think.
Well, that's part of the topic of next Tuesday evening. In terms of incentives, in terms of the financing for his own project, it seems it's consistent from the first time I met with him to the time he testified before you to when he came before the board a couple months ago. He's well capitalized, intends to purchase it with cash and then finance the rehabilitation through bank financing. So to make his bankers probably feel a little better about making the loan and him feel a little bit better about embarking on such a large project is why he's coming back to the board. Now, Tuesday night, they won't really be approving of his proposed uses or necessarily approving of his fee waiver request, but they'll be hearing them because his list of requests are such that staff on our own can't assure him of any of these approvals. Is why we're bringing him before the board so they can get a sense of how his progress is and what it is that he's seeking from the village.
So slow but sure, we're moving forward.
Yes, it continues moving forward, yeah, but next week is a critical step in this project.
Thank you.
Perhaps the most critical.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Generally, board packet goes up online when, Friday or
I'm going to defer that to Scott. I think Friday.
Wednesday?
Wednesday?
Okay, day after tomorrow.
If there's no further discussion on the new business front, we'll move to adjournment. Have a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody that's not can stay here as long as they want.
We're going home.
Thank you.